This tutorial is for scientific writing number 2, and this is probably the largest or one of the largest Excel files you'll work with all semester. So to start out, if I scroll over, you can see that my subject column is staying. I've highlighted where my females are. When you first open your file, make sure that it's split between males and females because of their sex-specific formulas. Open up the Excel help document that should be available to you in the Scientific Writing 2 Lab 3 file. If not, ask your GA about this. They have access to this and can upload it easily for you. If you look at your other sheets, you're going to see all these numbers, and the zeros are going to auto-populate if you do everything right for both the analysis and the ranking to help us out. So to begin with, we have to go and calculate the BMI. Going back really quick to freeze that pane, if you just look at freeze panes, you can freeze the first column, and then, like I said, when you scroll over, you can at least see where your females and males are changing when we get into those sex-specific calculations over on this side. So you're not going back and forth, like, how many rows do I have to go down? Okay, so first thing first, we have to calculate BMI for everyone. BMI doesn't change between sexes. That calculation is the same. We did it for scientific writing 1, and it's going to be the same thing here. So we're going to divide by 100, multiply by itself or character up, and put a 2. And then we're going to divide the weight by the meters squared. I'm going to highlight those 3 cells and drag down. And 1 decimal is fine for all of these. Now we're going to get into body density. Make sure before you begin that these are all in decimal form. If one person had put, 13.1, let your GA know, so they can go fix that on everyone else's sheet, especially if you have downloaded this pretty early on and notice a change like that, because that will save a headache for a lot of people. So the first thing we want to do is calculate body density. So to do this, we're going to equal 4.95 divided by the percent body fat plus 4.5. And if this comes up, usually it's just you forgot a parenthesis. I forgot to put the second parenthesis. Yeah, accept. You want this to round to 3 decimal places. So if you have more, just go and change that before or after you still have them all highlighted. To calculate fat body mass, it's pretty simple. We just need to hold our weight multiplied by our percent body fat. Now, to make things easier for us, I want to hold this column. That way, if I copy and paste this later, we don't have to go back and change which box it's taking that information from. And then lean body mass is going to be the same thing. And I'm going to put that $sign in front of it again because it's holding the column. And then we're just going to subtract the fat body mass. So both these numbers should equal your weight. And if not, check your formulas. Again, these don't change for females and males. So you can just easily copy those formulas down. Now I'm going to highlight these body density, fat body mass, and lean body mass. And I'm going to just paste it over here. You see the numbers change. If I click on this, it shows that it's still holding that weight. Escape to get out of it so you don't accidentally screw up one of your calculations. And we have these values. And so if I go over, you can see these numbers are starting to auto-populate like they should be. So going back over, Now we're going to start getting into a little bit more difficult stuff. And this sheet is going to help you a ton. If this sheet isn't available to you, make sure to ask your GAs, because it'll make your life a lot easier, because you're just going to copy and paste these numbers based on each section and highlighted part into Excel, because these numbers are really easy to add a zero or not have enough zeros. So these are sex specific. I already have this calculated here, so I'm going to delete this to show you really quick. To sum anything, it just equals sum. And then to select 3 different boxes that aren't next to each other. For the men, we're looking at chest. And then I'm going to put a comma, abdomen, comma, thigh. And I can drag down and make sure that you're dragging down only to the males, because the females are different. Females, we're going to sum the triceps, the suprailiac, and the thigh. And then we can drag down again. Now for all of them, if you're summing something and they're all next to each other, you just have to select all of them like we do for averaging, and then we can drag down. So now this is when this sheet is going to come in handy. So we're on 3-site. We're going to look at this 3-site calculation. And for section 1, I'm going to copy and paste that number. If I look over here, we're multiplying by the sum of 3. Section 2 equals, I'm going to come in, multiply, parenthesis, the sum of 3, parenthesis, carry up, and put a 2, because we're squaring that. And then we're going to do the last section. And this one we're multiplying by age. So I'll scroll back down, select the age, hit enter, and drag down for my males. Now to calculate body density, we're going to use this whole formula. But now it's pretty easy. So we're going to copy and paste that first number that's not highlighted. And then we're subtracting section 1, adding section 2, and subtracting section 3. And I accidentally hit the section. That's why instead of the actual numbers, make sure you're selecting the numbers. So subtract section 1, add, subtract. There we go. And we want our values to be between 1 and 1.1. If they're above or below that, you're going to have very weird readings, which you'll see when we get into the actual percent body fat. So then we can do the same thing for the females. So now we're going to do section 1. Make sure you get that parenthesis in there. And make sure you're selecting the sum of 3 and not the sum of 7 for this. And then scroll over and make sure you get their age, not their weight or their height or any other value. And this is going to try to auto-populate it. We don't want it to auto-populate completely. We need to change this first number for body density for females. because it is different than the males. So now I can just move them on down. Now this time we have to calculate percent body fat. So we're going to equal, put 2 parentheses, or 1, you just need 1, 4.95 divided by the body density, and subtract by 4.5. If you look in your lab manual, it's going to tell you to multiply by 100. That's to get a percent body fat. We need the decimal form to continue on. If you want this to look like a percent body fat, you can just hit that percent sign like we've seen previously. So I'm going to just drag this down. If you want to put in a percent, you can. I want 1 decimal left over, 1 to 2. I'll just do 1 for this time. And then you can actually come over and copy and paste the fat body mass from previous. So you can double check it's still holding that weight column, so we're good. Now you're going to repeat this process with the 7 site sections. And make sure you're getting that 7 site value instead. Again, that parenthesis is important. And again, this value is different than what we used for the 3 site. And we're subtracting, adding, and subtracting. And that can just copy and paste down. Not copy and paste, but drag down till we hit the females, and then we do the females. Again, make sure you're getting that sum of all of the numbers when you first do this. Because if you screw up one tiny number, it changes everything significantly. This is the most tedious part of this Excel, really, because these formulas are so in depth. Using this copy and paste helps you out a lot. And multiply by age. And again, it auto-populated that. Make sure to go in, and you can just delete, so it's 1.1, as we see here. It doesn't change everything above it, but then when we select and move down, we're all set. So again, this percent body fat calculation is the same. And calculating fat body mass and lean body mass stays the same. Again, I'll double check to make sure we're still pulling weight from the right column, and we're set there. Now we're going to average our water weights. Select those 3 weights. And this is in pounds. We need it in kilograms. And really, we only need 2 decimals. 1 decimal. And I'll bring those down. For residual lung volume, remember this changes with sex. When we do this average, we need to also subtract our chair weight. Because that chair weight is a large portion of what we see. So make sure you get that taken care of. You can just do it at the end. So for residual lung volume, we're taking the FVC, and for males, we're multiplying it by 0.24. We'll just drag that down. And then for females, we're multiplying it by 0.28. Okay, so now I have what's the numerator and the denominator. So our numerator is going to be our air mass, or our typical weight. So come back and grab that, multiplied by the water density. And then our denominator is going to be that air mass again. Subtract our average water weight, make sure you get the kilograms one, minus our residual lung volume, minus water density. And these you can put to 2 decimal places. And these don't change between females and males, so you can simply just drag this down and you should have all your values. Now to calculate our body density, that's what these are for, so our numerators on top, and divide by the denominator. And again, you can make these to 3 decimal places if you'd like. And now we can go back, we can copy, not from our BIA, from our Skinfold, we can copy that percent body fat, paste it in, and grab our fat body mass and lean body mass and put it in. Again, I'll just double check to make sure our weight is being pulled from the right section. So now we have all of these calculations done. This is the hard part. Now for analysis, it's pretty straightforward. If you go into analysis, you see all of these numbers have auto-populated, and we're gonna find our average. Make sure you type in average. And we're gonna find our standard deviation of the population again. And we'll do 2 decimals for everything. And then we can just drag across. Now we have that set, so we can go to ranking. And I see that we have 1 negative. This is participant 23. And that's on the underwater weighing. So if you find you have a negative value, I should have been checking this here. You can see that this person's values are a lot higher. Bring this to the attention of your GA. There's probably something that happened earlier on. They need to figure it out. For this time, for the purposes of this, I'm just going to delete that just so we don't have it screwing up our reading. You will not delete it. Talk to your GA. There's probably just a simple issue somewhere in the data that can be fixed, like decimals in the wrong place, etc. So the first thing we're going to do is we're comparing the DEXA versus the BIA. So we're going to use an absolute value, and this absolute value is important. It helps if some of these tests are predicting over what we see, or if they're underestimating. So if some people it's overestimating and some it's underestimating, it's going to make it look like it's closer when we take the average if we don't account for it. By taking the absolute value, we are accounting for that issue because we'll get rid of any negatives. So DEXA minus BIA. I can hold that column. Drag across. You can see that we're doing this for each test now. We're subtracting each test value from the DEXA because the DEXA is our gold standard. Now we're going to take the average of these and the standard deviation. And we're going to use the average, not the standard deviation, the average to determine which is closest to DEXA. So the closest to 0, these averages are, the closer to DEXA they are, which makes it pretty straightforward for this one because they go right in order. 4.1 is what's closest. So our BIA was surprisingly what calculated it best. And even though hydrostatic used to be the gold standard, our setup at Wyoming with the fruit scale instead of a digital scale makes it a bit more difficult to do a true hydrostatic test result. So you can talk about that. Actually, you don't have to because you're not doing a discussion section. For scientific writing 2, you're just doing your methods and your results. So if you look at your scientific writing assignment, it tells you that you're going to have to create a graph with these values showing the ranking. This makes it super easy. You're just going to select these, insert, and we're going to select just a typical bar graph. You're going to go in, you're going to add those axes titles, and you can add data labels. And you can also add data error bars. And these error bars, you can do standard deviation, you can do standard error. For this, you're just going to select standard error. You don't have to have these data labels, but I think they help to show the data a little bit better. And so you might just have to move them up or to the side because they usually have these little lines that connect them. This automatically shows you what your ranking is because it shows you what their deviation from the DEXA is. We don't have 2 series here, so you can get rid of the legend. And you easily have that created. So that's all you need to do for scientific writing 2. I know it's a lot when you first look at it, but really with these different hacks, it's pretty straightforward. If you have questions, make sure to ask.